It's my pleasure now to introduce our second speaker this morning, Louise Foott, who is who's Head of Arts in Health and Education in MTU Crawford College of Art. Louise is an artist, educator, facilitator. She's fascinated by the dynamics of learning within the artistic process, and this curiosity has guided her practice through many years. She's working particularly in how the arts can support and deepen reflection and learning among third-level students, and how it can enable meaning-making and connection. I'm going to hand the floor over to Louise, who can tell you more about her work. Thanks, Louise.
I think one of the gifts of Creative Brain Week is its capacity to juxtapose really different voices and really different disciplines right beside each other. So there's going to be a lot of pictures in this one, and I think, just listening to what Shane was saying, I think probably there's that connection between moving from a tribal approach to identity and more to a contribution approach. Really is where I'm coming from, and also starting. It's very much bringing it back to the person, and even deeper, to the senses as well. So next. A few years ago, I sat in the audience of Creative Brain Week and listened to Dominic talk about transitional routes, where ideas bump into each other, and the artist's capacity to put information together in different ways. I'm standing here today taking, I'd say, significant scientific liberties as an artist, and offering insight into the freewheeling nature of the thoughts that I have. And maybe within these uncertain ideas, questions are raised that open cracks for new directions of travel. I have a theory. No, actually, given the audience, I have a hypothesis. Apparently, I think differently. I didn't know that. There were indications, but they could have been attributed to so many things. All those brothers, an Irish Protestant, good at drawing. She's very artistic. I thought I was in the middle of the bell curve. Married, kids, formal education, employed, but my therapist of many years gently suggested a while back that she saw me maybe off on the tail of that curve. What is it like to live comfortably within a paradigm? So comfortably you don't even realize that the things you accept as normal, your values, your way of life, how you engage with the world, are normal to you, are a group of yous, but they aren't normal to everyone. Some of us exist within those paradigms, but find ourselves on the edge. Some of us find ourselves interrogating and questioning those edges. So what is a paradigm? A set of assumptions, values, and practices that have established a way of viewing and experiencing reality for the community that shares them. They may be determined by worldview, Western, Eastern, Indigenous, religion, educational systems, cultural ways of being and doing. Whatever the specific paradigm, it's still a set of assumptions that have established your views, absorbed through life experiences. And we assume others around us have absorbed them similarly. What will I tell them if they ask me, do I believe in God? Son 2 asked as I drove him to his first and only church camp. Well, I asked, do you believe in God? I thought I'd start with the basics. Yeah, I do. He pondered for a moment. I believe in all invisible things, really. God, Santa, the tooth fairy. He paused. Not so sure about the Easter bunny, all that random chocolate appearing around the place. I believe in all invisible things. There was an assumption I had never paused to notice. We assume two different invisibles. One, God, and two, the invisible things that are part of our folk heritage. It had never occurred to me that they were all invisible until Son 2 offered a different way of categorizing his experience of the world. Bayo Akinmolafe talks about autistic politics, an embracing of these different ways of being in the world as opportunities to notice and learn. What have we assumed? Do we value some ways of processing experience more than others? Does a different way of categorizing, processing experience, growing knowledge indicate disorder, disability to us, straying from some culturally agreed path? Or is it an opportunity to enrich our experience of the world and our capacity to live in the world? Dare I even suggest, in relationship with the world? 2 years ago, I sought and received an ADHD diagnosis. They're all the rage these days. It seems the incessant curiosity, questioning and pondering, the high-level multitasking which generally resulted in many things started, not quite so many completed, the mind wandering, the new idea chasing, the procrastination are all indicators. What does this mean for me? Has anything changed? There's a slight ease, a realization that all those years weren't effortful trying to fit into other people's normal, to be in the middle of that bell curve, an internal frustration that I couldn't just relax and get on with things. I now know I am just wired differently. I don't battle with myself to be like everyone else quite as much. I am finding courage to stand a little taller over here rather than leaning towards the center of that elusive bell curve. And I'm keeping excellent company. Apparently, it was very unlikely that I would find myself the mother of 3 neurodivergent young people and not be neurodivergent. That was their argument as they nudged me to seek a diagnosis. But there is a dis-ease too. As is my way, I'm questioning the edge of this new world. What is this category? ADHD. What does it mean? What does it communicate? Looking at neurodivergence through a diagnostic lens, I find terms that problematize differences in the processing of information. It's a deficit, a disorder. It's both. Attention deficit, hyperactivity, disorder. Our brain's executive control network, that goal-oriented, outward-focused network, and our default mode network, the internally focused, reflective network, relate to each other differently than in a neurotypical brain. These networks usually have an opposing relationship. One switches off as the other switches on. Now I'm focused, now I'm daydreaming. However, in some people, instead of one network switching off, when the other network is activated, they can both be active simultaneously. Focus, focus, task, task. Ooh, idea. Question. Idea, idea. Question. Focus. Interestingly, the behavior of brain networks attributed to ADHD is very similar to the behavior of those networks being increasingly explored in creativity research, with the default mode network being recognized as key to creative thinking. The reluctance of that network to switch off is the very reason I have those ideas and keep asking those questions. The reason I see connections and possibilities, the reason I have a greater capacity for creativity and imagination, thinking around and beyond those edges. So, is this diagnostic lens of deficit and disorder a categorizing from within a particular paradigm? A paradigm that values rational thinking, linear processes, performance outcomes, and clear, measurable categorization. Beyond this purely diagnostic lens, I'm the mother of 3 very unique and creative humans whose curiosity, determination, and way of seeing the world are a constant inspiration. Are we all disordered? Or are we creative individuals? Who decides? And why do they get to decide? So, what is my hypothesis theory? We're here talking about and exploring the creative brain. It's a heady mix of neuroscientists, educationalists, health policy makers, artists and innovators. But have we assumed a paradigm within which our explorations are taking place? Our Western culture values clear, quantifiable knowledge, organized categories of knowledge. Over the centuries, we've agreed what is real knowledge, and everything else has slipped into the background. We love naming things, categorizing them, breaking things down into their component parts, mind, body, spirit, for example, isolating them, containing them. But what about all those things that exist in the in-between spaces? I've become fascinated by the interstitium recently. Less than a decade ago, scientists discovered what could potentially be a new organ. Mind-blowing. How can we have explored our bodies so thoroughly over the centuries and missed an entire organ? But miss it, we did, because of how we were looking. The interstitium exists in the in-between space, hence the name, under our skin, around our organs, a sponge-like fluid-filled, honeycombed network throughout our bodies, providing structural support to our muscles, aligning our bodies. It is visible, but it wasn't noticed. It had gone unnoticed because of how the body was prepared for studying. Dissection, mummification, isolation, classification. A new endoscope offered a new way of seeing and new insight into the importance of the in-between spaces in our body. Predictive processing is a scientific theory that proposes our brains work by developing an internal model of the world that we use to predict what is going to happen. Every single bit of information our brains get enters our bodies as sensory data. Based on the accumulation and categorization of data we have filed away, we anticipate what to expect in any situation. If the situation doesn't meet our expectations, we just make a slight adjustment. This theory proposes that the prediction revision process is a much more energy efficient way for our brains to work than having to constantly collect every detail in every given moment, make sense of it, and then act. According to predictive processing, from infancy, we learn what to pay attention to. Over time, our brain fine-tunes from billions of individually firing neurons to a complex network of hubs and neural pathways that have tuned into what we have noticed is important to pay attention to. But we learn socially. This process happens through what we have been seen role modeled. It happens within a social context, a social and cultural context. So our brains are culturally wired. We are wired for paradigms. And here's my hypothesis. If you are wired for a particular paradigm, and that paradigm aligns with how you process information, you may not even notice that how you think, what you believe, is just one way of being in the world. It is just one way of understanding the world. You may not realize that what you pay attention to isn't all that is there to be noticed. You might inadvertently overlook a body part or an assumption in how you categorize. Back to son 2. Age 5, he slipped a stone into my pocket and said, in my language, this is a calm stone. Age 5, a lived experience of the capacity to regulate the nervous system by engaging the senses. There's always a stone in my pocket. All through school, he sat intently in class, eager to learn, and failed more exams than I thought possible. He had to write a statement of purpose to accompany an application to art college. Much of school just felt like I was there, but not really able to take in the information and do anything with it. I found it difficult to comprehend what was being taught because so much of it was through words. Art was different. It is like an escape for me. I love looking at the detail. With photography, I am able to see the world how I want to see it, and able to show others how I see the world and what I am interested in. Who decides what is knowledge and how we must grow knowledge or transfer knowledge together? Autistic politics. an embracing of these different ways of being in the world as opportunities to notice and learn. So what about us then here in this space of knowledge making, thinking better together? I'm deep into a PhD exploring the arts and their role in learning, meaning making and well-being. Many, many, many rabbit holes. I wandered into this space as a practitioner and an educator with a deep belief in the value and power of the arts to facilitate learning. I still am excited by the surge in research pointing to the health benefits of engaging in the arts, whether passively or actively. But, notice me moving to the edge of the space, I was curious, maybe even concerned by what seemed to be a need to translate the arts into a different language, into science, to legitimize these benefits. Who decides what is knowledge and how we must grow knowledge or transfer knowledge? Some research rabbit holes. What is art? I'm going to leave that one for another day. Relationality. When you see the body as a process, when you see the body as a dynamic interaction with the environment, you need to reconsider how we do science. It's Augustin Ibanez in Creative Brain Week 2024. We are deeply interconnected. An attendee at Creative Brain Week 2 years ago had been wearing a heart monitor that provided her with a graph at the end of the day. That evening, she sent me this message. There's a low in my stress today. It's the line that dips down the lowest on the graph. When I checked the timing, it was exactly when I sat down beside you in the lecture hall after lunch. You were my safe space and my body relaxed when I found you. Thank you for being present and co-regulating my nervous system. We are all dynamically interrelated, the caretakers of one another's nervous systems. At Creative Brain Week last year, we were introduced to a new concept, social exposure. I think I pronounced it right. How the accumulation of adverse exposures across the lifespan becomes biologically embedded. It seems we aren't separate selves in the way we thought we were. We are deeply interconnected and impacted by our constant interaction with each other and the world around us. What does this mean for how we do science? Neuroscience and imagination. Predictive processing talks about sensory engagement with the world and the narrative that we build around this sense data to make meaning from experience. This narrative is going to be different for all of us, depending on our bodies and all of our lived experiences to date, our social and cultural backgrounds. Reality is constructed, and it is different for all of us. Imagination is described as the ability to form thoughts and mental images that stretch beyond what is currently available to the senses. When you are thinking about an interaction with a friend or colleague before or after it has happened, imagination. Pondering your next holiday, imagination. Formulating your next hypothesis, imagination. Connecting new ideas to old ones, imagination. Connecting sensory data to past experiences, imagination. Is imagination the foundation of knowledge creation? Stories. Stories are everywhere. We literally are our stories. Our experience of reality is through the narrative of the story hardwired into our brains from birth. I am telling myself the story of my experience, and how I make sense of my experience frames and reframes my story. My family has a story, whether we are tuned into it or not, and we live by that. This family story is embedded in a broader social story, and that within a broader cultural story. Those paradigms are stories. And those stories can change and are changing all the time. Novelist and philosopher Sylvia Wynter coined the phrase, homo neurans, the ones who narrate themselves. We create stories about life and about who we are, and then live within the stories we create. What are the stories we are living by? What are the paradigms we are living by? How do these stories impact how we live in relationship with each other and with the world? And back to that interstitium. In addition to being a very intriguing body part, the interstitium is a wonderful metaphor. What is in the space between the organs of what we have decided is knowledge? What are we not seeing? What is there yet to be discovered? If we pause to notice the details of this in-between space, what is yet to be known? And if imagination is the means by which we develop new insights and connect new ideas to old ones, what role might there be for ways of exploring and knowing that engage more directly with the senses, pre-verbal ways of knowing that enable you to consider something from a range of different perspectives, both felt and cognitive? What role might there be for the arts? So many questions. Science can give us facts. The arts can support us to make meaning. We need both. Relationality. We can regulate each other. Co-regulation. Checking. There is a film. Is it going to play? This was all tested. Yep, okay. That was the last thing I had to worry about, was whether the film played.